Alright, so I finally went ahead and got a new intercooler. Starting to get closer to summer now. One thing I noticed, even during the winter, my intake temps would rise probably like 160 degrees from start of a pull to end of a pull. If I did maybe 2 to 3 years in a row, it would at least be 140 to 160 degrees higher by the end of the pull. So with the warm weather coming, definitely needed something a little bit better. So I went ahead. You got this guy right here, the arm, however you say it. 7.5 inch race intercooler, 1K. So definitely a little bit bigger than before. Let's see. I just pulled the old one out. So let's compare them. Definitely a little bit of a difference. The old one I think was a VRSF, I think like a 5.5 inch. So it just wasn't quite cutting it. Oh yeah. Alright, so I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed. I think this is the first time that I'm gonna have to do something to the car that I can't reverse. So usually everything else I try and do to this thing, I try to make it so that I don't really know why. I probably don't ever plan on selling the car, but I like to make it so that it is reversible. Maybe in case I don't like it, I don't know, it makes me feel a little better. But the intercooler is 7.5 inches, and there's no way it'll fit behind the bumper without cutting some of those pieces of the bumper support out. So it sucks, but I guess it's gotta happen. Alright, so got the new intercooler on, and didn't last very long. Intercooler was fine, but so for, was it Easter, went over to Jacqueline's family's house, and none of them had really been in a ride in my car yet. So went ahead and took her dad and brother for a ride. Normally when I'm out kind of by myself, maybe one other passenger, second gear I gotta turn the boost down a good bit, otherwise it spins. But a little bit warmer weather, and just two people in the car, seemed to be hooking pretty decent. So I figured, what the heck, turn the boost up a little bit. So I turned it up in second gear just to a normal boost, run about 30 psi. So seemed to be doing all right. Hit anti-lag, doing a roll and launch, hit anti-lag at 40, and went as soon as I let go, caught traction for about a second, and snapped the axle. So we didn't make it very far, kind of got stuck on the side of the road. Had to call a tow truck, got it towed back home. Went from second, and it started redlining. So at first I thought I was spinning, but no lift shifted into third and just straight to rev limiter. And I was like, oh crap. I was like, man, I think I just blew third out. So I shifted into fourth. Fourth was still doing the same thing. And I was like, okay, it makes me feel a little bit better, and figured it was CV axle. So pulled over the side of the road. Brother-in-law Adam got in there, looked at it, and yep, sure enough, he could see the CV axle just chilling right there on the control arm. So not the end of the world. Figured it was bound to happen at some point pretty soon. Actually surprised it took this long. So got it here in the garage, getting ready to pull the stock axles out. I got some replacements from Rock Auto just as a temporary, and then what I'll go ahead and do is send these stock axles over to DSS down in North Carolina, get them to make me a set of axles. They're rated for 1,000 wheel, so and that should definitely hold, hopefully. Most people seem to have pretty good reviews about was the Drive Shaft Shop. So I saw a couple people have some negative remarks. I saw one person said something about just a bad balanced axle. So hopefully that's not the case. We'll get it and see how it does. I don't feel like buying stock axles and putting them in here because I know as soon as I put tires on, I'm probably going to have the same problem. I mean, I don't want this just to be a 60 mile per hour rolling car. I'd like to be able to go to the track, do some digs, and not really have to worry about every time I go out, if I happen to catch traction in second gear, about snapping more axles and leaving me stranded. It's the downside to having a open differential, but even if I had LSD, then still I'd be driving around with an axle flopping everywhere, and it could definitely mess a bunch of stuff up. So yeah, I'm gonna get over here, get this CV axle swapped out, and get the old one sent in. Hopefully they can reuse the one that broke. We'll see. I called them and talked to them about it. They said as long as it's not too destroyed, they should be able to still use it. But I'll send it to them, and they'll give me a call and let me know if they have any problems with it. And if they do, I'll see maybe about sending them a stock one, a new OEM one. But I'll talk to them and see what their thoughts are, just as far as manufacturing quality on some of the aftermarket ones. I try to stick with everything OEM or better, at least buy everything BMW or whatever that I can for it. So it should be pretty easy to swap these axles out. I'm not sure. I haven't done it on a E9X chassis yet, but should all be relatively the same. So let me get in here and get these swapped out, and hopefully maybe drive the car a little bit tomorrow. I hardly got to drive it with the new intercooler. I did a couple pulls on it. Definitely pulled a lot better. I could really feel the difference when I started getting up there. Probably not pulling time anymore. I'll have to take a log and kind of see what the timing looks like. So yeah, pretty excited.
Posy always has to be involved. Posy, what are you doing?
See that axle?
Where is it? Here, let me see. Oh.
It's supposed to be inside of there.
In
that boot.
Yep. I don't know if I can get a good angle. Nope, that's a terrible angle. Oh, there it is. LOL.
So the downside of this being an open diff car, taking the axle out, is since this axle's broken, now there's nothing to keep this side from spinning once you start putting pressure on it. So I managed to get the old axle out. Now I got my impact up in there, and I'm squeezing past right here and going straight to the nuts, one at a time. I think the only way you're going to get it is with an impact. I was going to try and use, I got a chain wrench, but I was going to try and wrap around the stuff at the axle, but it's just kind of hard to hold that still and have room to use the ratchet. So I was able to squeeze that in there. I figured I might as well use it. This is not at all what I expected to see when I pulled this apart. I don't know whether to be disappointed or proud. So when I pulled it apart, I kind of really expected just to see like the cage inside of this boot kind of destroyed, but that is not the case. It literally sheared the shaft. That whole thing just sheared right away. So yeah, that's not good. Probably cannot use this drive shaft anymore. So I'll probably have to get a different one to send to DSS. So fun. Alright, so I ended up calling it a night. Just give it a break. Had to go do some other things, finish up our garden, a few other things. So now, pretty much, I tried it a few different ways. I was trying to see, one, kind of test out and see what would be the easiest way to do it. Because I wasn't sure. There's a lot of control arms on here, upper and lower, and front and rear, and everything. And then the two lower control arms, are your camber adjustment. So I was really trying to avoid having to get an alignment. I still haven't taken those two loose. What I ended up trying to do was take the upper control arms off. I tried taking these loose right here and seeing if I could get enough room to be able to pull the whole spindle kind of back and be able to slip the axle in this way and get it into the hub, but it just wasn't quite enough room. I think maybe if I had another person here kind of pulling back on it as I was trying to push it in, that might work. But ultimately what I ended up doing, since it is single turbo now, it's got the V-band clamps, one right at the turbo on the downpipe, and then one right at the back of the downpipe where it goes from one pipe into two, that little Y pipe right there. So that was really easy to take off. I just, one bolt, drop that down, and then drop the rest of the exhaust down real quick. Yeah, so I think that's going to end up being the easiest way. By dropping that down, that should allow me to get the drive shaft CV, should allow me to get the CV axle up into the hub and lift it back up and put it right into the differential. So that kind of gets everything out of the way, eliminates the need of having to get an alignment afterwards. So it's really not, I didn't even think about it at first. I was like, oh man, I don't want to have to buy another gasket just to pull the exhaust off. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh man, I got the freaking V-band clamps on there. So definitely nice having some V-band clamps. But I got that down. Go ahead and swap both those out, and I'll have to order another OEM axle. But in the meantime, while I was waiting, just kind of giving it a little bit of a break, went ahead and got a BMW roof rack and a bike rack. So love riding my mountain bike, and it's not as fun driving this old turd. That's usually what I use to carry my bikes. But she's never any fun to drive, so then it's not as exciting. Go ride my bike. So I can just throw my bike on here, race some Hellcats on the way, make them butt hurt with a mountain bike on top. Nothing better than that. Well, sad to say, pretty sure I just blew out the trans. So, got my temporary CV axles in, took it for a drive, testing out the roof rack, trying to see, make sure everything was good and just kind of check it out. Got on it in third gear, and it did not like that at all. So, slowed down, I started making all kinds of noise. Pulled over, started looking at it. My first thought was, okay, maybe it's the Guibo or the center support bearing, because it kind of seemed like it was only doing it when I was in gear, but once I started going again after I looked at it, I noticed it was doing it anytime the driveline was moving. So I knew it had to be something related to drivetrain, whether it be the axles, but it sounded too far forward to be the axles. So at that point I was like, it really is either got to be the Guibo itself or the transmission. So definitely sucks. Summer's coming up. I was pretty excited, finally got the car to a decent place, was getting ready to get tires, the axles, everything, but I guess all that's going to go on hold while I try and figure out what I can do as far as the transmission. I know parts aren't really available to rebuild this trans, so I'll either have to find another transmission or see what I can do about some sort of swap. I don't know, I'll have to do some research and see what kind of good swaps are available. Maybe do like a Turbo 350 or some sort of Power Glide, or who knows. I guess I'll start looking and see what the plan is. Go ahead, guess start pulling this thing apart pretty soon to see if that's actually what the issue is. And maybe I'll get lucky and it'll be something else. But I noticed it was just, I could go second and it would be, making a lot of noise, go third and it was just terrible. Going to fourth and then it was kind of, still making a bunch of noise but nowhere near as bad as third. But anytime I was actually in third, it was pretty bad. So my guess is probably just hard shifts into third, especially with the no lift shift. It, probably end up doing it in. But yep, so looks like spring might be out of the question. Who knows? Maybe I can find something quickly. I just don't want to find some piece of junk and put it in here and have the same issues, but we'll see. So